Aloha! It's good to be back with you. I always enjoy these times together with you on Mondays. Well, I want to start out today with something fun. So I'm going to do a little magic trick. But I have to tell you, it's not really magic. There's a little science in this also. Now, some of you saw this at school, and if you have, don't tell the people around you. If your parents or brothers or sisters are watching this with you, just let them figure it out for themselves. So I'm going to start by taking this little piece of wood, and I'm going to stand here, and I want you to predict what you think would happen. So I'm going to put it on the end of my finger and let it go. And I have a feeling your prediction was correct. It's just going to fall. Well, let's try this again, and I'm going to make it even heavier. I brought a belt along with me today, and let's take this belt and put it right on the end there so it stays in there. Now let's predict. What do you think's going to happen? I'm going to let go. It's still there. Now I have a feeling some of you thought, oh no, it's going to be bad and Mrs. Wilson's going to get embarrassed. But something good happened. In fact, it's kind of fun to let it do that. So what you thought was going to be really bad actually turned out really good. I'd like to go over here and read a little Bible verse that will help us understand that. In Romans 8, it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Let's think about that. God works for the good of those who love him. You know, that means God can take bad things and turn it into something good. It doesn't mean that everything will always be good. There is sin. There's evil in the world. There are bad things. Right now we have this virus in our world, and it's bad. It's because of sin. But the thing I know for sure is God can take something bad, like this situation, and use it for his purposes and to make good come out of it. Let me show you an example. You know, sometimes I get thirsty at the weirdest times. So right now I'm a little bit thirsty. So let's say I wanted to make some tea. So I'm going to take out a tea bag, and I'm going to put it in my little cup. And I have some water that I took out of the refrigerator, and I'll add just a little bit of water to my cup. And let's see what happens here. Oh, I have the tea bag in there, but I don't think it's going to make very good tea. Nothing much is happening. I'm going to tell you a little secret. You know, in order to make really good tea, I have to use hot water. In fact, if I want it to be really good tea, it should be boiling hot water. The kind of water that if you stick your finger in it, ooh, it would hurt a little bit. You know, that's kind of like our life. Sometimes we have things in our life that hurt us, like that boiling hot water. But God has the ability to make good things come out of it. Just like I could get some really good tea out of hot water, God can use those things in our life that hurt to bring something good. You know, sometimes I've had things in my life that have hurt me, and I didn't like it at all. But some good things that came out of it is that it forced me to go to God and to trust in him for his care, because I couldn't handle everything on my own. And now when I see other people going through a hard time, I'm able to go up to them and say, hey, this is what God did for me when I was hurting, and I know he can do that for you. I know for sure God can take bad things and good things can come out of it. I want to read a story that happened in the Bible to Paul. Paul is going to be in a shipwreck, and that's definitely a bad thing. That's not something you want to have happen. But let's see how God can use that shipwreck and turn it into something good. It says Paul traveled around the world to preach and tell of Jesus' love. He said, "You're saved, believe in him. You'll go to heaven above." Oh, but Paul's enemies were most upset. "He's telling lies," they said. "Arrest that man, get rid of him. We want to see him dead." Well, Paul was made a prisoner. He was no longer free. His trial would be far away in Rome, across the sea. Paul and some other prisoners climbed on a great big ship. Strong soldiers went aboard to guard them on the trip. Paul warned the captain of the ship, "Oh, it's too dangerous to sail. The winter storms are coming with wind and rain and hail. Oh, we really should wait till spring and sail in calmer seas. If we go now, our ship will crash. Listen to me, please." Well, a gentle wind began to blow, and that captain couldn't wait. So the ship sailed off. The strong winds came. But then it was too late. That ship was blown far out to sea. There was no turning back. The rain poured down, the waves were rough. Oh, the sky turned black. And the people cried, "We won't survive, our ship is going down." And Paul said, "I've got good news for you. God promised we are not going to drown. God's angel will send our ship, and yes, will watch our ship, even though it will crash. And no matter what we try, God still wants me to get to Rome. He has promised none of us will die." Well, for 14 days that storm roared on, and the sailors said, "We're getting close to land. If we hit the rocks, we're dead." But Paul said, "God promised we would be safe. Let's eat this food I found." He took some bread, he thanked the Lord, he ate, he passed it all around. The folks were feeling stronger when kaboom, kabash, beware! The ship got stuck in sand and some waves wrecked it there. The people hit the water fast and hurried to the beach. As God had promised, all were safe. And now look, Paul began to preach. He told them of Jesus' saving love to everybody on the shore. And when he got to Rome, he praised God and shared even more. God keeps his promises to us, just as he did to Paul. Believe in Jesus and you will be saved. That's the best promise of all. God took that shipwreck and gave it to Paul as an opportunity to share about his love with even more people. Who knows the things God can do with all the things that are happening in our world? I have no doubt God has a purpose and a plan. Let's fold our hands. Dear Lord, help us to trust in you. Even though we don't always know what will happen, we know you can take the sad things and turn them into good. Be in our hearts and with us always. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I want to do a little bit of science with you today. You know, the month of May is when I normally do a whole unit on the ocean. Maui is surrounded by an ocean, and I know a lot of you go to the ocean often. And I want to teach you some things about that. Well, today my lesson is going to be all about sand, and specifically I'm going to talk about the sand on Maui and teach you some things that you might not know. First of all, did you know that the sand on every single beach is just a little bit different? You know, Maui has some beaches with what we call black sand. And this is a picture of the black sand beach on Maui. This is out towards Hana. And this beach was made when lava came down, went into the ocean, and oh, those rough waves broke it up into little bits, and it made a black sand beach. On another beach on Maui, we have something called red sand beach, and this is a picture of that. And the reason it is red is the sand actually has iron in it. Now, iron is a type of metal, and I want to show you a little experiment. I'm going to take a magnet off of my chalkboard, and first thing I'm going to do is have you just take a look at it. Can you see that it's just a magnet? There's nothing on it. Now, in this cup, I have some sand from Red Sand Beach, just a little bit in here. I'm going to put the magnet in the cup, just kind of swish it around a little bit. And now, can you see on my magnet? The sand is stuck to it. That's because there is metal. There's iron in this sand. Well, some beaches on Maui look totally different. If you think about the beaches in front of Wailea, where all the fancy hotels are, that's nice white, soft sand. And a lot of that sand was actually brought in for the tourist. But if you drive around to the Lahaina side, there is a scientist who took sand samples all over in Lahaina, and he put them under a microscope and he magnified them 200 times bigger than what the normal grain of sand is. And this is what it looks like. Can you imagine all of these came from sand that was in Lahaina? And I can't help but think God must have had a lot of fun when he was making the islands in the sand. Just look at how beautiful that is. Well, if you drive around to the north shore of Maui, that same scientist went to Baldwin Beach. Now, if you think about it, sand feels different under your feet. The sand in Wailea is very soft. But if you go to the north shore and you go barefoot on the sand, it's kind of rough and scratchy. That's because look at this sand. This is what it looks like on the north shore of Maui. It's a little bit bigger and rougher. Again, he took grains of sand, and this is magnified about 200 times what the real size would be. You know, some of my students know that I love to learn things about the ocean and sand, and my former students have sent me pictures and samples of sand, and I'd like to show you some. One of my former students sent me this picture. This was taken on a beach in California, and you can see that sand was really colorful. You can actually see her toes in there. Another person brought me some sand from some islands that is south of Hawaii, and it's called star sand. Now you can't really see it in here because it's kind of small, but I did bring a picture, and star sand looks like that middle one right there. Every single grain looks like a little star. So that's pretty cool. And again, you can see all different shapes and colors that sand comes in. Well, sometimes you're on a beach on Maui and you'll see things washed up in the sand. And I'd like to show you a few right now. These are things that you'll find a lot of. These came from a sea urchin that died. And you'll see these washed up on the shore. And sometime if I'm at the beach with little kids and they get bored, we'll find these and I'll say, hey, look at what you can do. You can take these and they're just like chalk. Now watch what I'm going to do behind me. I'm going to take one and I can go like this and write on the chalkboard, just like chalk. So sometimes I'll take these and I'll find them at the beach and I'll say, hey, you want to go on the sidewalk at the beach, and we'll draw little pictures with these. Now, another thing you find in sand on Maui is sometimes you'll see little bits of coral that have washed up onto the beach. Now, it's illegal to go in the ocean and break off coral and take it out. We don't want to do that. But it's okay if you see a piece that's already broken off and just sitting on the beach, you can pick it up. And that's what I did. Now, if you look carefully at this coral, there's little teeny holes all over it. Inside of those holes, there used to be a living animal called a polyp. Now, I brought a picture with me today, and I want to show you some. These little polyps stay inside there and they come out and they capture things in the water to eat. It says each coral polyp uses minerals from seawater to build a limestone skeleton. If they are disturbed, they will go back into those skeletons for protection. And here you can see how tiny they are. It says hundreds of individual polyps make up the reef. There are different kinds and shapes of coral. This one's called staghorn coral because it looks like deer horns or deer antlers. This one is called plate coral because it looks like a giant dinner plate. This is a fun one. This is called brain coral because it looks like the surface of a human brain. Now this one is a soft coral. They call it a sea whip. And it has a flexible skeleton and it'll actually sway like a tree branch in the water. Well, a lot of fish have pointed noses and they can stick right in there and take a little bite of the coral and they'll eat the little animal inside there and let the hard outer shell fall on the ground. And that's how a lot of our sand is formed. Now in Hawaii, we have a lot of butterfly fish. And some of you know that I like to scuba dive and I've seen a lot of these in the water. Now if you look at his nose, it's really tiny and he can get in there and he loves to eat the polyps in the coral. But when I look at him, I think of how God made the fish and he protected them. He gave them ways to stay safe. If you look, his real eye is right there. But on the back of the butterfly fish, he has a little spot. And to a predator, that spot looks like the eye. And sometimes they'll go for that, but really the eye is here. And the fish will get away before the predator can get him. One thing that I've seen around the coral in Hawaii, this is a barracuda. And I've seen those when I was diving. And a couple times I've had to be careful because they love to eat shiny little fish in the water. And one time when I was scuba diving, I had a really shiny watch on. It was a brand new dive watch and I was so happy. But the man that I was scuba diving with, he was my partner, he took good care of me. He saw that barracuda taking a look at my watch and he quickly put his hand over my watch. Well, the barracuda swam away and I'm thankful he did that. Otherwise it might have taken a bite out of me. Well, in Hawaii, we also have lots of sharks. This is a white-tipped shark. I've also seen those diving, and they don't usually bother you. We have lots of turtles in Hawaii. And again, it's totally fine to take a look at them, but it's illegal to touch them, and I wouldn't want you to get into trouble. Okay, I want to jump up to another picture. This is black coral. You have to go down about 100 feet in the ocean to get black coral. And a lot of times they make jewelry out of that. Sometimes in the coral reef, you'll also see octopus. Octopus love to use camouflage, and I've seen them. If they feel threatened, they'll change colors to make themselves look like whatever's around them. All right, I'm going to skip up to this one. This is a giant moray eel. And again, we have lots of those in Hawaii. And sometimes people think like, oh, they're just waiting to bite you. But that's not really true. Did you know that when a moray eel is breathing, its mouth will slowly open and close? And that's how he breathes. But if you're close by one, I always tell people I'm diving with, don't let your fingers go like this in front of his mouth, because he loves to eat octopus. You wouldn't want him to bite your fingers. So when I'm around an eel, I just keep my hand in a fist so it's safe. My next picture is a sad picture, but I'm going to show you because sometimes that happens in Hawaii. This is an anchor that went into a coral reef. You know, we have a lot of protection in Hawaii to help save our coral reefs, but sometimes people don't listen. And they put down anchors in places where they're not supposed to. And this could destroy years and years of the reef, and we certainly don't want to see that. Well, if you would be at school, I would be doing a project with you. And since I can't do that, I'm just going to show you a project that you could do on your own at home. This isn't perfect. I just took a marker this morning and I made the island of Maui, and I just did it real quickly. What I would encourage you to do is make a sand map of Maui. And how you do this would be like the North Shore. So let's say you went to Ho'okipa or Kanaha Beach Park. When you go there, take just a pinch of sand. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. And when you come home, put a little Elmer's glue here and just put a little pinch of sand on it and let it dry. And you would write the name of the beach right next to it. Say, oh, this sand came from Kanaha Beach, or this sand came from Ho'okipa. And you could do as many beaches as you could around the island. And I've seen kids have a complete sand map of Maui. And I think you're going to be amazed at some of the patterns and things you'll find. As you go around Maui to the Hana side, you'll notice black sand beaches. As you go around the back side of Maui, it's be different sand than from the North Shore of Maui. I would encourage you to give it a try and have fun with that. I want to close by reading a story to you. You know, one of the things I miss the most is reading to you. I always love reading stories and talking about them. Well, today I want to read one of my favorite stories. It's called How Full Is Your Bucket? Felix was putting one of the last blocks on his tower when his little sister came in. I want to build with you, she said. But Felix scowled. Go away, you're too little. I'm big. Stay back, you'll knock it over. I can be careful. Go play with your baby toys, Anna. You can see she's kind of mad. And then she knocks it down. Grandpa! Grandpa shook his head. Felix, you just dipped from your sister's bucket. Like everyone else, Anna has an invisible bucket. And when it's empty, she feels bad. But when it's full, she feels great. Didn't you ever notice your own bucket? An invisible bucket? Sometimes Felix couldn't quite tell if his grandfather was joking or not. Well, the next morning when Felix woke up, there it was, a small gray bucket floating right above his head. And when Felix came down to have breakfast, oh, his mom was in a hurry. I've got a meeting this morning. It's almost time to go. Anna, sit still. Watch what he's doing. Felix slipped, and the cocoa wheat scattered across the floor. Felix, yelled his mom, you should have used this stool to reach that. Felix could feel his bucket tip, and invisible drops spill out. Drip, drip. Ha ha, Anna laughed, and she crunched the cereal with her shoe. Get the broom and clean that up before you miss the bus, scolded Mom. And when the school bus was honking, Felix quickly swept up the cereal. He grabbed the last blueberry muffin, but before he could even take a bite, the dog buster jumped up and grabbed the muffin out of his hand. A little more water dripped out of his bucket. Hey, look at Felix's new backpack. My baby brother has one just like it. He was making fun. Another drip. Psst, psst. Guess what I heard about Felix? And they started telling secrets about him. Drip, drip, his bucket's getting more and more empty. Hey, watch out, Shrimp. Drip, there's almost no water left. It was still morning, and Felix's bucket was almost empty. As he watched his classmates walk into the room, he secretly hoped, I hope they trip and fall. That's what it feels like when you have an empty bucket. You're just not happy with anyone. Felix slumped into his seat and waited for something else bad to happen. And then the teacher walked slowly up to his desk, handed him a paper. He could hardly bear to look. Felix, you wrote a wonderful story. Would you please share it with the class? Felix grinned, and he felt a big drop land right in his bucket. The class grew quiet. They laughed at all the right places. They oohed and ahed at the scary parts. And when Felix finally read the end, everybody clapped. Even Emily, who sat right next to him and didn't usually like dinosaurs. Felix felt like a whole shower of drops landed in his bucket. He felt so good about himself. Maybe the day wouldn't be so bad after all. Okay, look, his mom wrote him a note that said, I love you from Mom. Here it says, you can be the team captain today. And the teacher said, nice cow. And he said, no, it's a dog. And the teacher said, well, that's still nice colors there. And here someone gave him a sincere compliment. Cool, laser ant backpack, Felix. By afternoon, Felix's bucket was nearly full. At recess, when he looked around, Felix suddenly realized his grandpa was right. Everybody else had a bucket too. Drop, drop, let me help you. Here's your baseball, catch. Hey, thanks, dude. Hi, I'm Felix. Is this your first day at school? Yes, I'm Amir. Did you notice the strange thing that was happening? For every drop that he helped to put in somebody else's bucket, he felt a drop in his own bucket. When Felix burst in the door after school, he shouted, you were right, Grandpa. I do have a bucket, and I understand how it works. And then he saw Anna's torn doll. Bad dog. Oh, he almost scolded. And then he thought, hey, dogs have invisible buckets too. He wasn't going to yell at the dog. And he said, your doll will be okay, Anna. We'll fix her. It said, until then, do you want to help me build the tallest building in the world with my blocks? And they did. You know, when you say nice things to others and fill up their bucket and how they feel good about themselves, it makes you feel good about yourself also. So this week, I want you to try and fill up each other's buckets and encourage each other. I'll see you next week. Bye.